the strongest women engines. The trains in North America are proud of being healthy and strong. They like to pull freight cars and passengers while work is getting done. The Northeast Corridor is an electrified line in the United States that goes from Boston to Washington, D.C. All the engines love working on the corridor. Amtrak does a good job in North America because they take people from place to place while their work is getting done. There are Horizon coaches, Fleet coaches, and Viewliner coaches. One afternoon, Becky, Dwee, Lauren, and Sam were in the rail yard. "I would like 4 of you to collect a train of 209 cars, Sir Tomat said. "That's a lot of wagons, sir," said the engines. Before long, the freight cars were coupled up to Becky, Dwee, Lauren, and Sam, and they were making their way to Vickerstown. "We must get our cars delivered off island," the engine said from up front. In the back were 2 cars filled with crushed rocks. "The crushed rocks must be unloaded when we get to New Haven, Connecticut," said Becky. "They should," said Dwee. And the freight cars clattered on. Becky, Dwee, Lauren, and Sam steamed along the Northeast Corridor, and they were making their way to New Haven Shunting Yard. And they were really useful to pull the longest train. "We have to stop at a signal to let the Acela go by," said Becky. And the crew members brought the engines to a complete stop right at the signal. "The Acela Express is going 100 miles an hour, said Becky. "Coming through," called the power car, and the Acela Express flew by at 110 miles an hour. Before long, the 4 engines arrived in the yard, getting ready for the nuclear flasks attached to their wagons. "Is it okay if you shunt your cars into my train?" asked James. "Of course it is," said Becky. And the 4 engines shunted their cars into place softly. And the freight cars shifted around. "Have fun on your journey," called James. And the engines puffed away, making their way Vancouver, in the next country over, with half their goods being delivered to each place. We're not delivering all the freight cars to one place at the same time, said Dwee. We're delivering them to separate places. And the train clattered on. We must get to our destination soon, said Becky. You're right, Becky, we do, said Dwee. We must make it on time, said Lauren. We should, said Sam. The engines clattered on into Rochester, New York, as they passed Corbett's Glen with the beautiful waterfall and as they went over the tunnel. The train was really long. The Lakeshore Limited has to make it to Chicago, said Becky. And the train clattered down the track along the line as it was making its way down to New Bedford, Massachusetts, which was the first stop. Meanwhile, the Lakeshore Limited was letting off passengers at Buffalo Station. We must get our freight cars delivered soon, said Becky. And the engine steamed through Buffalo Depot at a whole speed of 55 miles an hour. Buffalo Depot had all the passengers getting off the train as the whole freight train from the other side of the world clattered by. All the items behind the four engines were very important to them. Before long, the freight train was gone and the Lakeshore Limited departed Depot Station, making its way to Chicago, Illinois. Because the reason why the Lakeshore Limited is so long is because half of it goes to New York City and half of it goes to Boston. And the train clattered down the track on its way to Union Station in Chicago. 714 was making its way down the line as the whole train clattered on down the track. Becky, Dwee, Lauren, and Sam came into the prairie near farm fields and grasslands. Then there was trouble. A tank truck was stuck on the tracks because it had a flat tire. The driver heard a train coming and he got out just in time. "There, we have to stop!" cried Becky. Her driver applied the emergency brakes. But there was nothing else to do to prevent a collision. When Toby saw the accident, he couldn't believe it. 161 cars had jumped the track, and 42 cars did not derail at all. "I can't believe we're stuck here," said Becky. "Neither can I," said Dwee. "We'll be out soon," said Becky. "We just knocked over a whole bunch of engines and freight cars in the yard." "I've never seen such a horrific accident like this," said Toby. And he puffed away to get help to clean up the mess. That night, Becky, Dwee, Lauren, and Sam were in the sheds. Thunder and lightning flashed and thunder crashed, and the engines were in the sheds. "Thanks for saving us," said the 4 engines. "You did a good job helping us." The next day, the storm had passed, and the line was reopened, and the yard was cleaned up with the mess. And even though the engines can be having trouble sometimes, it's best if you stay off the tracks at all times.